If I had left the king's palace just 5 minutes later, I would not have witnessed the tears that changed a family's story in Umuchukwu forever. I am Ananaba, son of Elder Okwabunka, a humble farmer in our great village, Umuchukwu. That evening, I was returning with Ezeoji from the Igwe's palace, where we had just concluded the Elders' Council meeting about the upcoming New Yam Festival. Amadi, our young charismatic leader, has put up various plans for the upcoming event, and we were all eagerly waiting for the day to come, but this is another story for another day. Ezeoji, a man of calm spirit and grey wisdom, insisted we stop by his friend's compound, Ezeji. "Let me tell him the outcome of the meeting," he said. I followed silently, already dreaming of the roasted maize I would buy on my way home. But the moment we stepped into Ezeji's compound, we were greeted by the heartbreaking wails of a child. It was Kasaranna, Ezeji's only daughter, barely 5 years old, her cheeks wet with tears and her head jerking away in protest as her mother, Charity, tried to plait her hair. She always cries like this whenever I try to do her hair. She twists, she kicks, she shouts, like a wild goat. Charity barked as she gave the child a quick slap on the back. "Charity, stop it," Ezeji shouted, rushing towards them. I stood frozen by the mud pillar, unsure whether to stay or quietly walk away. But something in Ezeji's voice made me stay. "She's only 5, for heaven's sake," he continued. "Can't you see the pain in her eyes? Must you always beat her like she's a thief?" Charity stood up sharply, her hands still clutching the wool thread. "So now you want to tell me how to raise my own daughter," she snapped. "This child is stubborn. She won't sit still for 1 minute." Ezeoji looked at me and gently nodded, as if to say, "Let's stay out of it." But I couldn't help watching the tension rise like harmattan dust. Kasaranna, with her face buried in her knees, kept sobbing quietly. And that was when it happened, the twist none of us expected. Ezeoji, the man of age and honor, slowly stepped forward. He knelt beside Kasaranna, gently lifted her face, and wiped her tears with the edge of his wrapper. He turned to Charity. "I once had a daughter like her," he said softly. "Sweet. Delicate. She hated having her hair done too. But my wife, God rest her soul, beat her until the day she fell and hit her head on a stone. She lost a tooth. That pain, Charity, never left my heart." Charity's hands dropped. The wool slipped to the ground. Her mouth quivered, but no words came. "I don't mean to judge," Ezeoji added, "but sometimes, in our eagerness to train our children, we forget they are still learning how to be in this world." Silence filled the compound. Even the chickens stopped clucking. Ezeji pulled Kasaranna into his arms. "Let her be a child, Charity. Let her cry. Let her feel. Let her trust that we will protect her, not scare her into silence." That night, I walked home slower than usual, the stars blinking above me like the eyes of our ancestors. I couldn't forget Kasaranna's tear-streaked face, or the pain buried in Ezeoji's quiet voice. And in the quiet corners of Umuchukwu, the story spread, not to shame Charity, but to remind every parent that discipline without compassion is a wound that may never heal. 3 days after the incident, calm returned to Ezeji's compound, or so it seemed. Charity no longer shouted at Kasaranna. In fact, she barely spoke at all. Her silence filled the home like dry harmattan air, cold and crackling with guilt. I visited Ezeji one evening. The moon was full, and the village square was filled with laughter and pounding drums. But in that compound, there was only stillness. Kasaranna sat on the wooden bench beside her mother, her hair unplaited, wild, and free like the river Ezeji in rainy season. She looked at her mother and said softly, "Mummy, when you beat me, it made my heart cry. But when you stopped talking to me, it made my whole body sad." Charity's eyes welled up with tears. "I was only angry because I wanted you to look beautiful," she whispered, pulling Kasaranna close. "But I forgot. I was hurting the most beautiful thing I had." That night, Ezeoji returned. He had brought a gift. A small carved stool and a wrapped bundle of soft threads. "It's time you learn the old ways," he told Charity. "Our grandmothers used to sing to their daughters as they plaited their hair. It was not just grooming, it was bonding." And so, under the moonlight, Charity sat behind Kasaranna. She dipped her hands in warm shea butter and began to part her hair, this time gently. And as her fingers moved, she sang, "Noir Emoma, Isigidika Udala. My good child, your hair is like the Udala fruit. It wasn't perfect. Kasaranna still whimpered once or twice, but her tears were met with kisses, not slaps. From that day, a new tradition was born in Umuchukwu. Mothers came together once a week, not just to plait hair, but to bond, through songs, stories, and laughter. And little Kasaranna became the heart of that movement. A child's cry had awakened an entire village. Moral of the story: a child's cry is not always rebellion. Sometimes, it's a plea for gentleness in a world they are still trying to understand. When we correct children with love, they learn. When we correct them with fear, they remember pain. Harsh words and raised hands can break more than bones, they can crush a soul. True upbringing is not just about rules, but about connection, patience, and presence. Not every cry is defiance, sometimes, it is discomfort. Understanding comes before correction. Listen to the tears before you silence them. Gentleness is not weakness, it is ancient strength. A moment of silence to listen can save a lifetime of regret. What we call stubbornness in children may be their spirit asking to be understood. Anger teaches fear, but love teaches values. Children remember not what you said, but how you made them feel. Thanks for watching. Subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this story and haven't subscribed. I'll see you in my next video. Bye.